Hello, I'm Pridie and I'm a storyteller. I run the company The World of the Words, and the clue, the secret is in the name there, because I love telling stories, telling tales, the words, but I also like telling them outdoors, the wild. And if I'm not able to tell stories outdoors, then I tell stories that bring the outdoors indoors. Hence the World of the Words. Some of you hopefully joined me during lockdown, so you'll recognise maybe this little garden setup. It's nice to be out here again. It's a bit different though. There's no flowering jasmine. All the leaves have fallen off the trees, and it's a little bit windier and a little bit colder. But I think it will still do very nicely for a little winter's tale. Now, I'm going to tell a story today that feels all Christmassy, hence my red jumper. It's a story not from the UK, but from a place called Bulgaria, a country in Eastern Europe. An amazing country, actually. I visited Bulgaria maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, and it was very, very beautiful. Almost a third of the whole country is wild, with great mountains and forests. And there's wild creatures there still, like bears and wolves. They also, here's a fun fact for you, they also have one of the nicest yogurts in the world. And apparently that's to do with some sort of bacteria that they have that exists around there. Fun fact of the day. What else can I tell you about Bulgaria? Well, I can tell you that when I went there, everybody was very, very smiley. I think it might even be one of the friendliest countries that I've ever visited. But there was one thing that was quite tricky to get right when I was there, and that was that when you say yes, you have to shake your head. And when you say no, you have to nod your head. Now, I don't know how easy you find that. Try that for me now. Say yes, but shake your head at the same time. Yes, yes, yes. It just doesn't feel right, does it? Now try no, but nodding your head. No, no, no. It just doesn't quite feel right, does it? So it was quite tricky because in countries when you visit and you don't know the language, you'll often use a bit of body language. Nodding, shaking heads. But if you're doing it the wrong way round, it's pretty hard for people to understand you. But it didn't matter, or it didn't seem to matter, because everybody just smiled and laughed, and we all managed to get through it. So this tale that I'm going to tell you today is a Bulgarian folk tale, and it's got a great name. It feels really Christmassy. It's called The Little Girl and the Winter Whirlwinds. Now, it's not just you that's with me today. I've got a couple of people sitting here listening as well. So if I look down at the ground, it's because I'm just checking that everybody's still with me. And also, they're going to be helping me too whilst I tell my story. And that's what storytelling's all about. Sharing stories together. And what you could try to do is retell the story at some point over Christmas. It's not difficult, really. It doesn't need to be a long, long version of the story. Just a little bit of story, or a little piece of it that you remember. Maybe draw out the pictures if you listen to this again, and then try picturing those images in your mind. And slowly, but surely, you'll see that you can piece the story together. Well, if you're sitting comfortably, then I will begin. Long, long ago, the wicked winter witch decided that she would stop the sun from shining, and she would halt the march of spring. She called the clouds across the sky and bid them cover up the sun. And as the snow fell and the sky grew darker and darker. The land was covered in ice and snow and darkness. Now that snow continued to fall. It fell for such a long time that it wasn't very long before the houses had snow right up to their roofs. The villagers, well, they had to get out and talk to each other. And the only option left to them was to force open the doors and dig tunnels across to each other's homes. Eventually, they dug a wide enough hall that they could gather and discuss what was to be done. We must send someone up to the top of the tallest mountain, and we must wait and wake old Father Frost, for he will know we were there, and he will come. Ooh, it is a dangerous journey, they said to one another. Who amongst us is strong enough to travel across the land and up the high, high mountain and then wait in the ice and the snow, calling for Father Frost? Who is strong enough and brave enough? An old man stepped forward, really old, holding himself up with his walking stick, barely able to stand straight. But he spoke in a loud, clear voice, and he said, "I will go." "You cannot go," said the villagers. "You are too old and too weak. You will perish before you even reach the snow line." And then a little voice spoke out from behind the old man. The little voice belonged to his granddaughter. "I will go," she said. Her grandfather stepped aside and allowed her to step into the light of the lantern. And she repeated, I will go." "You cannot go either," said the villagers. "You are too young, you are too small, you are too weak." Now this little girl was an orphan, for her mother and father had died when she was young, and she'd lived alone with her grandfather for many, many years. And he had looked after her well, and he had taught her to be brave and strong and to love. And she looked at every one of those villagers and she said, "I have a strong, warm heart. I will make it to the top of the mountain, and I will speak to old Father Frost." The old man put his hand on her shoulder and looked too at all the villagers gathered around and said, "I believe she can. She does indeed have a strong, warm heart, my granddaughter, and if anyone can make it to the top of the mountain, she can." Well, all the villagers set about gathering for her everything that she would need on her journey. "Here, have my mittens," they said. "Here, have my warm boots, have my hat, have my scarf, have my jacket." They gave her everything they possibly could to keep her warm and to protect her on the long, long journey that she was now to have as she set out. Our little girl began to walk. She traipsed through the snow. She walked far until she reached the mountainside. The edge of the mountain was rocky and the path was difficult, but she carried on because she was strong of heart, and she was warm because of her heart full of love. Now, it was winter time, remember, because the wicked winter witch had caused it to be winter all the time. And the snow continued to fall, and the winds began to rise. And it wasn't long before the winter whirlwinds that lived upon that mountain spotted the little girl on her way to old Father Frost. "Who is this child?" they said. "How dare she step foot upon our mountain? We shall blow and blow hard, blow fiercely upon her, blow her off the mountain so that she may never find old Father Frost, and our mother, the wicked winter witch, will be pleased with us." And so they did. They began to blow. Can you blow? And the winds got stronger and stronger and stronger. But the little girl bowed her head and she pulled her coat around herself. She tucked her scarf in and pulled her hat down over her ears. And she walked into that storm. Well, try as they might, the whirlwinds could not blow her over, and they could not blow her down off the mountain. They could not even get her to change her course, for she was set on reaching that summit. "Oh," they cried, "let us find our sisters, the blizzards, for if anyone can knock her off, it is they." Well, the blizzards came, and they too worked up such a storm that now the snow was hitting her right in the eyes, freezing her chin, her cheeks, blowing her almost down, such that even as she strode forward against the wind and the snow and the ice, it hurt and it was hard. But still she carried on, for she was strong of heart and full of love. And that's what protected her, you see. Eventually, she came almost to that point where it was only going to be a few minutes more before she reached old Father Frost's icy winter palace. The blizzards and the whirlwinds knew that unless they acted now, their mother, the wicked winter witch, would be very, very angry with them indeed, for they had not managed to stop the little girl. They called, they cried for her, "Mother, mother, come now, for she is to reach the icy palace." And the wicked winter witch bid them calm and said, "Wait, if we cannot stop her with force, we shall try the opposite and be kind to her." "Should we kiss her?" they cried. No, nothing of the sort," whispered the winter witch. "We shall be kind to her and ask her, perhaps, if she needs a little rest." And so the winter witch appeared before our little girl. And there she stood in her long, glittering gown with shining hair and a necklace of sparkling, icy diamonds. "Welcome," she said to the little girl. "Welcome to the mountain top, young one. You must be tired. You must need to rest. Why don't you lie down for a moment and I'll sing you a lullaby." Now the little girl was amazed to see this woman appear out of the mist before her, but the woman had the face of her own mother, and as she began to sing, she sang the lullaby that her mother had always sung her when she was young, when she was tiny, before she lost them. And as the winter witch sang this song, our little girl found herself feeling sleepy. And she lay down in the snow, and she pulled her cloak and her coat up round herself and her hat down over her ears, and she closed her eyes and she fell asleep. Well, the wicked winter witch had achieved all that she set out to achieve. And she turned to her children the whirlwinds and the blizzards, and she said, Now, my fierce ones, watch, for we have won. And they left the little girl on the side of the mountain, only a few steps away from the gates of the icy winter palace, so close to old Father Frost. They left her sleeping. Now, as she lay there sleeping, and the temperature fell and got colder and colder and colder, her cheeks turned from the warm red to the waxy white and yellowy skin of someone who is freezing. For this was what was happening to our little girl. Colder and colder by the minute, she was slowly freezing to death. But then, in the snow, beside her, there was a little bit of movement. And a little nose, with some little whiskers, broke out of the top of the icy crust of snow that had fallen and frozen around her. And this was a little mouse. And it poked its head up, and it saw the little girl sleeping. And it saw that she was cold. And it realised instantly that she needed help. It scurried across the snow, around to where her boots were. And it climbed inside of her boots and snuffled right down to where her toes were. And it laid itself against the bottom of her feet, her head nestled right up next to the little girl's toes. And that little mouse wriggled and squiggled and tried its hardest to warm her up. But of course, warming toes isn't going to warm you up if you're lying on the freezing ground and you're cold. So the little mouse scurried back out and called for help, squeaking as loudly as she could. And more little holes appeared in the snow around the sleeping girl, and the rabbits emerged. "Oh, this little one is freezing," they said. "Let us climb inside of her coat and snuggle against her skin. Let us warm her up." And so in they came, and they snuggled and they snuffled right up against her. But still they were not enough. So they called again for help. And out of the trees came the squirrels. And out of the woods came the deer and the foxes and the wolves. And all of them gathered around the little sleeping girl. And slowly, the colour began to creep back into her cheeks, and her skin turned from the white, yellow, waxy colour back to the pink-tinged cheeks of before. And she opened her eyes, and she saw herself surrounded by all of the woodland creatures from the wild that had come to keep her warm and to wake her so that she would not die sleeping on the freezing ground. Leaping up, she said, "Friends, I must make it to old Father Frost. I must tell him that the wicked winter witch is making winter stay forever. We need his help. We will come with you," they said. And so together with all the forest creatures, our little girl walked forward to the palace gates. On opening them and walking up to the door, knocking on the door, they heard nothing. Nobody answered. So in they went, and down a long icy corridor, until they came to a great hall. And in the centre of that great hall, there sat an enormous ice-covered throne, glittering and sparkling. And on that throne, there sat old Father Frost, or as we know him, Father Christmas. And he was sleeping. He was fast asleep. One of the squirrels had a plan, an idea. One of the squirrels scurried forward, scurried up his jumper, and tickled him under the nose with his tail. Old Father Frost moved about, still deep in sleep, but sensing this tickly squirrel's tail under his nose, and then, without warning, achoo! Uttered a great big sneeze and woke himself up. And he was amazed. Oh, he said, have I been sleeping? Have I been sleeping all through winter? You have, Father, the little girl said, stepping forward. And the wicked winter witch has made winter stay here forever. Too harsh a winter for us. It's been going on for too long. Too much snow has fallen and our houses are covered. And we have to tunnel our way out to talk to each other. Father, we cannot grow any crops. The flowers will not grow. Spring will not come. We need your help. I will help you, said Old Father Frost. And he called all the elves and the fairies and the helpers that he knew would come when he asked. And he said to them as they stood before him, "Go and find that wicked winter witch and bring her here to me so that I may put her in the cellar and shut her away so that she can cause no more trouble. And then I want you to go up into the sky and I want you to pull the clouds away from the sun so that she may shine again." "Go now," he said to the little girl, "and return to the village. For once more, the spring will come. It will be warm again, and the snows will melt." So our little girl and all her forest creature friends said thank you to Old Father Frost, or Father Christmas as we know him. And back down the mountain she travelled, until when she arrived in the village, she was greeted with great cheers, because by then the snow had started to melt and the sun had come out once more, and the villagers knew that she had succeeded. And there was a great party, and there was much celebration, and people rushed to gather the snowdrops for her and present them to her as gifts. There was a great happiness across the land, and rejoicing such that had never been seen before. Because it's quite unusual to have a hero in a little girl. But you'll remember, this little girl was brave and strong, and she had a heart full of love. And that's the end of my story. I hope you enjoyed it. It's one that we haven't known for very long, actually. We came across it when we were looking for stories for this Christmas to share around the fire. And because I remember Bulgaria with such fond memories and such happiness and just having loved it so much, I really wanted to share a Bulgarian folktale with you. So see whether or not you can try and retell that story. It didn't take me very long to learn it. I could do an even better job of it if I told it 5, 6, 7 times. But that's the point. I want to show you that if a story really touches you and you really like it, you love it, then you'll be able to tell it.